We begin today the Mishnah, the new Perek, the fourth Perek of Masechta Shavuos. The Perek of Shavuos Eidus, which will discuss another category of Shavuos, a person that knows testimony, and one of the Bali Dinim is asking him to come and testify, and he swears falsely that he does not know this testimony. In such a case, he is chayiv to bring a carbon. The carbon oil v'yared that we discussed before, that kind of carbon which is for the rich and for the poor, a different kind of carbon. Even if he swears falsely about this, b'mezid, he brings a carbon. That's one of the unique things about Shavuos Eidus. So this Perek will be discussing all the details of this Shavuah. Zakteilige Mishneh Shavuos Eidos, this halacha of one that swears falsely regarding testimony that he knows. Neheges be'anoshim, it only applies to men that are kosher to say Eidus. A woman cannot say Eidus, as the Gemara will bring the source for this. So therefore, v'loi b'noshim, not by a woman. But a chaykin, only by someone that's not a relative that asks you to testify for him. V'loi b'kroivin, not someone that's a relative, because since your Eidus would not be accepted anyways, so lying about this, that you didn't really cause him a loss of money. We're talking about a dentaira and a money matter, and you refuse to say, or you lie about the fact that you know this Eidus. So if you're not your Eidus is not worth anything, it doesn't apply. B'ksheidin, only someone that's kosher to say Eidus. V'loi b'psulin, not someone that's puzzle. Rashi says, for example, a person that's a gazlan. Pasuk says, al toshes eid chamos, one that steals, cannot say Eidus. And the Mishnah adds, ve'eina nehages ele b'ru'uyin lahoid, it only is going to be by someone that's fit to say Eidus. What the Mishnah is coming to additionally exclude with this, the Gemara will explain. Now, this is bifnei bezdin, v'shaloi bifnei bezdin, if it is mipi atzmai. If the person is lying about this testimony, he knows whether this happened in front of the bezdin or even not in front of the bezdin. One of the litigants meets this person and says, you know testimony for me, come and testify for me. And he swears to him privately, not in front of the bezdin, that he does not know the Eidus. But that's only if it's mipi atzmai, meaning if this person himself or both Eidim are saying themselves a term of a shvuah that I swear that I don't know this Eidus. Or, as the Gemara already explained on Daf Chavtes, that it also includes, even if he didn't say the term shvuah himself, but he said omein to a term of a shvuah that he says mashbieni, I want you to swear for this that you don't know this Eidus, and he says omein. So then he'll be chayiv even if it's outside of the bezdin. But umipi acherim, if he's swearing, not himself, but there's others that are saying to him, you swear that you don't know this Eidus, and he accepts it without answering amen. So then he'll be chayiv as well, but then ein chayavin ad sheyichber bebezdin. He'll only be chayiv if it's the bezdin, it's in front of the bezdin that's having him accept this shvuah. Divrei Rab Meir. This is what Rab Meir says, and it's learned from the context of the pasuk where it speaks about this inyan of Shavuos Eidos. It speaks over there about one that's in front of the bezdin. As Rashi here brings him, lo yagid, he's coming to bezdin to say the Eidus, and there he doesn't say his Eidus. But in a case where he is saying the shvuah himself, the Gemara will bring this Gzeira Shaveh that the Gemara learns out when he says the shvuah himself, that'll still be chayiv even outside the bezdin. The Chachamim argue and say that whether he's saying the shvuah himself that he doesn't know this testimony, whether it's others that are saying the shvuah and he's accepting it, in both cases, we go by the simple pshat of the pasuk that he's standing in front of the bezdin and he has to say the Eidus and he's swearing that he doesn't know the Eidus, that only then will he be chayiv. Now, what are you chayiv here? V'chayavin al zodin ha-shvuah, he's chayiv even if he made this shvuah that he doesn't know the Eidus b'mezid. And also, v'al shegigasa im zodin Eidus, or even if he's a shaygig. But what kind of a shaygig? So the Mishnah says, this is a shaygig where there was a mezid, meaning the person knew while he's making this shvuah that he doesn't know this testimony, he was aware of this Eidus. He did know this Eidus. So in that sense, he's still amazed. But what does it mean, shigigasa im zadin Eidus? That the person was a shegig, that he didn't know that for such a kind of a false shvuah, he would be chayiv to bring a carbon. So there was an aspect of a shegig here. So for this, he's chayiv to bring a carbon. But now, ve'enon chayavin al shigigasa, but you're not chayiv to bring a carbon if the person made this false shvuah by mistake. What does it mean by mistake? When he made this shvuah, he didn't remember the Eidus. He thought that he doesn't know this Eidus. And then later he remembers that he was there and he knows the Eidus. So Rashi says that in such a case, the person is called an Einis. As we had already this concept before in the Gemara, if when a person makes a shvuah sheker as well, and he doesn't at all realize what it is that he said. He did, so as a person says a Shavuos sheker regarding the past, and he doesn't realize what he said. Then it's an oinus because he didn't understand what he didn't realize. B'chlal. The Ran here explains this. According to Rashi, he says really if a person is making the Shavuot, and while he's making the Shavuot, he thinks to himself, I don't remember to say this. He taka has no recollection. So seemingly you don't have to say what Rashi says, that he's an oinus. He taka doesn't know. So it's not only a point that when he says, I don't know the Eidos, a person doesn't remember. So Elamai, huh?
What is it? The shaking?
It's nothing. It's emes. The Shavuot that he's making is emes. At this point, he taka forgot. So the Ran says, but it's not so, because if he would have stopped and paid attention and thought to himself, wait a minute, this person is saying, I remember you were there and you know the Eidos. He should have stopped and thought about it, and he would have remembered. And he didn't. He just made a Shavuot, I don't know. So b'shas ma'aseh taka he didn't remember, but then a minute later he sits down and thinks to himself and he reminds himself. So you can't say that the Shavuot is mamish emes, because by emes even b'shas ma'aseh when he made the Shavuot, if he would have stopped and thought for a second, he would have remembered. And therefore Rashi says it's called an oines because b'poil b'shas ma'aseh he didn't remember, so that is not in the category of a shoygig, but it's an oines.
He has to bring the carbon.
No, for this case, because it's an oines, he's potter from a carbon.
What's a shaygig? That's an oines. And what's a shaygig?
The shaygig is only when he only forgot about the carbon. He knew the Eidos and he swear b'mezid that he doesn't know, but the shaygig was that he didn't know he would be chayav the carbon. The ein on chayavin, chein chayav shirgos, as you said. Or mein chayavin al zaden hashvuah. What is he chayav when he swears b'mezid? Carbon oil v'yoyed. Here, this is the chiddush by this. This is the only case where for a mezid you chayav a carbon chatos. This chatos of the oil v'yoyed, he's chayav for this. So the Gemara Menon and Mili. From where do I know the first halacha that was mentioned in the Mishnah that women are puzzled to say eidos? The Tanna Rabbana. So we learned in a brayso that explains this. It says in the pasuk va'omdu shnei ha'anoshim, and the two men stand in front of the bezdin. Who are these? Be'edim akasav medaber. The two men are edim that are coming to testify. And this, as Rashi says, is also based on the context of the pasuk. Right before this, it says ki yokum eid chamas be'ish. It's talking about edim before. So this also is speaking about edim. Now, you say that this pasuk is speaking about edim. Maybe this pasuk is speaking about the litigants that come in front of the bezdin, and that's actually the simple pshat of the pasuk in this pasuk itself, because it says va'amdu shnei anoshim asher lehem ariv. The two people that are arguing with each other come into the bezdin. So, but the brayso says no, we don't translate the pasuk this way, because from the continuation of the pasuk where it goes on and says asher lahem hariv, that they are arguing harei balidina mama. It's that expression of the pasuk that's describing the two litigants. So why does the pasuk first say these two men? It could have said va'amdu asher lahem hariv. So the fact that it says Shnei Ha'anoshim and then it adds Asher Lehem Hariv, we divide it and we say it's talking about two different things. So Be'edem HaKosav Medaber, the first part of the pasuk, Shnei Ha'anoshim, is speaking about two men, which is the Edim. So from here we see that Edim are only men and not women. Now the brayso goes on to say V'im nafshach loymar, and now if you will want to argue with this and say that no, the Shnei Ha'anoshim does not prove that we're talking over here about Edim, maybe it's still talking just about the litigants. So the brayso adds, Nema kan shnei, the pasuk here says the word shnei, V'nema lahalon shnei, and it says later, it's actually earlier, it's a pasuk before where it says the term shnei, Ma lahalon be'edim, just like there, the term shnei, it says, Api shnei edim yakum davar. So over there, it says the word shnei, and it's edim, afkan be'edim. Here as well, when it says shnei o anoshim, it means edim, and therefore it's only men. This is the lashon of the brayso. So the Gemara explains, what's the pshat here? Mai im nafshach loima. What does the brayso say? That if you want to argue with the first point that the brayso proved that it's talking about Edom, what's that argument? If you'll argue and say, midoloi kasav ve asher lehem ariv, it doesn't say in the pasuk v'omdu shnei anoshim and then ve asher lehem ariv, so that means kule krab balidin mishtoi. It's all speaking about the same two men, the two men that are arguing with each other, the litigants, not the Edim. That's the argument the brayso is referring to. So therefore the brayso adds, Nemakan Shnei, V'nemal alon Shnei, we have the Gzera Shava of Shnei, Mal alon be'edim, Avkan be'edim. That these two words of Shnei Edim, or Shnei Ho'anoshim that is speaking about the Edim. Now the Gemara is going to bring similar from another two brises the way it darshans this pasuk. Tanya Yidach in another brise we learned when it says in the pasuk V'amdu shnei anoshim be'edem hakasim medaber. The two men is the edem. Atoim be'edem. You're interpreting it as edem moyen ele b'balidinim. Maybe it's referring to the litigants. So Amarta. So here the brise says you say as follows. If it's speaking about the litigants, why would the pasuk say two? Two come to a bezdin in a din Torah, and it's not possible that there would be three people that have an argument with each other to come to a bezdin. So why would the pasuk say dafka two? So two is mashma that it's edim, even though it's also possible for there to be three edim, as Taisus here says. But nevertheless, by edim, it's usually two edim because three adds nothing to two, so it's usually two edim. So therefore, because it says shnei, so we know that it's edim. Now, if you'll argue with this raya. So I can answer you, nema kan shnei v'nema la'alon shnei, you have the gzeir shava of the word shnei, ma la'alon be'edim, avkan be'edim, that it's speaking about edim. So again, the Gemara explains what is the Braisa adding here. Ma'ayim nafshach loima, what is the argument you would say against the first raya of the Braisa? V'chi teime, if you'll argue and say that the question that the Braisa asked, that if it's speaking about the litigants, why does it say two and not three? I'll tell you, b'teveya v'nitva kamishto ikra. It could be three, it could be four, it could be 100 people. It says the term shnei because it's the two sides of the din Torah that are arguing with each other. That's the term shnei. So there's no raya that it should be speaking about Edom. So therefore the Braisa adds nema kan shnei v'nema la'alon shnei ma la'alon be'edem avkan be'edem, that we have the gzeir shava that it refers to Edom. A third Braisa that has another way of proving the point from the pasuk. Tanya Yidach in the third Braisa, it says, the two men come and stand in front of the bezdin be'edem hakasim medaber. It's speaking about the witnesses. Maybe it's speaking about the litigants. So Amarta, you say as follows. Why is the pasuk saying men, two men litigants are standing in bezdin? Only men come to a din Torah. Women cannot have an argument where they're coming to a din Torah. Then the Braisa says, if you'll have an answer to this, so I'll tell you, nema kan shnei v'nema la'alon shnei, that we learned from the gzeir shava, ma la'alon be'edem avkan be'edem. So again, the Gemara explains what exactly would be the answer to the first proof that the Braisa brought, that it doesn't make sense to say that it's speaking about the litigants, because then why does it say only men? Women also come to a din Torah. So mayim nafshach loima, what's the argument on this? Because v'chi teime, if you'll argue and say, isha lav orcha, but with a woman, it's actually not common that she should be the one coming to the bezdin for a din Torah. And the reason is mishum kol kvuda bas melech pnima, because the place for the woman that's supposed to be modest is to stay away from the eyes of the public as much as possible. So the fact that there's a din Torah, it's usually not the woman. And even in a case where a woman does have a case of a din Torah, she will send a representative, a man, to represent her. And there's a discussion in Rishonim about this, how a man could represent a woman, even if she herself is not coming to the din Torah. So therefore, the pasuk uses the term shnei ha'anoshim. It could still be speaking about the litigants, but a woman doesn't usually show up to the bezdin. So therefore, the Braisa adds and says, nema kan shnei v'nema la'alon shnei ma la'alon be'edem avkan be'edem, that the term shnei, the gzeir shava, proves that it's speaking about Edom, that the Edom could be only men and not women. Tana Rabbanon, and another Braisa we learned about this pasuk. What this pasuk teaches. Va'omdu shnei ha'anoshim. It says here va'omdu. So what do we learn from this? Mitzvah lebalidinim sheyamdu. There's a mitzvah for the litigants to stand in the bezdin by the din Torah. Now, even though the Gemara just concluded that shnei ha'anoshim refers to the Edom, and from here we learn that the Edom are only men and not women, but it doesn't take out from the simple pshat of the pasuk, where when it says Shnei Anoshim Asher Lahem Hariv, it's also referring to the Balidinim, and therefore we learn from here that the Balidinim must stand. As we'll see in the Gemara on Amud Beis, the Edom also definitely have to stand when they say their testimony. It's saying over here that even the Balidinim also have to stand. Rabbi Yehuda says on this, Shamaiti, I heard Shem Ratzu Lohishiv Shneim, they don't have to stand. If the Bezdin wants to have them both sit, Meshivin, they can both sit at the din Torah. But Ezeo Aser, what would not be allowed for the Balidinim at a din Torah? You shouldn't have one standing and one sitting. Or Echad Medaba called Tzarkai, similar. You shouldn't allow one to speak all he wants, to represent his to present his arguments as much as he wants. And then for one of them, the Bezin says you have 2 minutes to talk and not more. Because what happens then is, if one is standing, one is sitting, or one is allowed to speak and one is not allowed to speak as much, so then this one sees that Bezdin has something going on over here. This Baldin finds favor in their eyes, and he becomes very confused, and he's not able to say his tainus properly. Tana Rabbanan, and another brayse we learned about this point, another source. When it says in the Torah, B'tzedek, Tishbet Amisecha, you should judge your friend, but with justly, that means Shalayahei Echad Yoshev Echad Doimid. It refers also to this detail that you shouldn't have one sitting, one standing, that will cause the Baldin that's forced to stand to lose his tainus. Now, Echad Medaba Kol Tzorka V'Echad Doimid Lekatzit V'Rech, as mentioned before, one speaks long and the other one, the Bezdin doesn't give him as much time to speak. Another pshat, what B'tzedek Tishbet Amisecha means, B'tzedek Tishbet Amisecha means Havidon Es Chavercha Lekavschos. Judge your friend favorably. This is not regarding a dintayra. It's saying b'chlal, when a person sees his friend doing something, and you could interpret the actions that he did as an aveda, or you could find a way how to understand what he did positively, that he's doing something good, you should find a way to judge your friend favorably, to see only the good in him. Tana Rav Yosef says about this, B'tzedek Tishmet Amisecha means as follows. And here, it's focusing on the word Amisecha, that im she'itcha, or am, that is, am she'itcha b'teira uve mitzvahs. A person that's with the word Amisecha is made up of two words, am she'itcha. That those people that are with you in teira or mitzvahs, hishtadel l'daina yafeh. Make an effort to judge him properly. Now, what does this mean? It doesn't mean that Chas v'Shalom, that Bezdin judges a Talmud Chacham better and more than someone else. But what it means is that when there's two dinei Torah that come in front of the Bezdin at the same time, which din Torah should Bezdin take up first? And to judge him, and that he shouldn't have to wait. The one that's im she'itcha or am she'itcha b'Torah or mitzvah, some the Talmud Chacham. That's who you should make an effort to tend to his din Torah first. And we see this in the continuation from the Gemara, that's what the Gemara is saying here. Rav Ule berei de Rav Eloi. Rav Ule, the son of Rav Eloi, Havale Dina Kamei de Rav Nachman. He had a din Torah in front of Rav Nachman. Shalach le Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef sent a message to Rav Nachman. Ule chavereinu. Ule, our friend, amis b'Torah uve mitzvahs. He's our colleague in Torah and mitzvahs. That's what he sent the message to him. So Amar Rav Nachman said to himself, L'mai shalach li. Why is he sending this to me? L'chanufile. That I should flatter him. He wants me to be extra nice to Rav Ule. I'm not supposed to be extra nice to one Baldin more than the other. So Hada Amar, then Rav Nachman explained and said, L'mishra b'tigra. He sent me this message that he's a Talmud Chacham, so that I should open with his argument, with his din Torah, before another din Torah that came at the same time. He comes first. Again?
Hanifa is also.
Of course, exactly. That's what Gemara is saying. That he said that it wasn't chas v'shalom for Hanifa, but it's for the purpose that I should start. If I do two din Torah at the same time, you start with this din Torah of the Talmud Chacham first.
Or it's not covered.
Yeah, cover that Torah. As Gemara will soon bring this concept exactly. The covered for the Talmud Chacham. Inami, or another point that the Gemara says that could be relevant to know that he's a Talmud Chacham, l'shuda dedaini. In a case where the Bezdin is the one that decides the verdict, not based on evidence. Usually Bezdin assesses the evidence, and Bezdin paskins. Surely the Daini is in a case where there is no evidence for this din Torah, and Bezdin sort of chooses on their own, based on their feeling, on their what they understand, who is right. What's an example? Rashi brings two examples. You have a case where a person passes away, and he says, my property should be given to Tuvia. And there's no indication who this person by the name of Tuvia is. And there's one person that's a Talmud Chacham with the name of Tovia, and there's one person that's an Am Haaretz with the name of Tovia. So when Bezdin will choose who to give it to, Bezdin will assume that if this person doesn't have any relatives and he wants to give away his property, they'll assume that he wanted to give it to the Talmud Chacham Tovia. So it's important for the Bezdin to know who's the Talmud Chacham. Or another example, when a person is selling two properties on the same day, he writes two documents that he sold the property to two people on the very same day. So there's no way to figure out with the evidence of the document who it belongs to. So should the dining means Bezdin throws it. They have the ability to just give it who they want or who they feel is the right one, and there it would go to the Talmud Chacham. Okay, now going back to the point that was brought before regarding standing. That the Balidinim have to stand by the din Torah. So the Gemara brought the Machlekes that Tanakama says that the Balidinim have to stand, and Rabbi Yehuda says no, they could sit as long as they both sit. They could sit. Amarule, so it says about this Machlekes be Balidinim. This was an argument only regarding the litigants. Aval be'edim, regarding the edim that are testifying, divrei hakoil ba'amida. Everybody agrees that the edim must stand. That's very same pasuk. It says v'amdu shnei anoshim, so that means the edim must stand. So the pshat over here is, Taisva says that it says shnei anoshim asher lehem ariv. So the Gemara before already explained shnei anoshim refers to the edim. Asher lehem ariv refers to the bali dinim. So when it says the word v'omdu, it says it right near the word shnei anoshim. So therefore over there everybody agrees that the edim must stand. Regarding what it says afterwards in the pasuk asher lehem ariv, there's the argument if the bali dinim must stand or not. Another point, Amar Rav Huna said, or Amar Rave, Machloikis b'shas maso matan. Their argument whether they have to stand or not is during the deliberations of the din Torah. Aval b'shas gemar din, when it comes to the time of the verdict, divrei hakoil, here everybody agrees, dayanim b'yeshiva, balidinim ba'amida, that the judges sit and the balidinim stand in front of the bezdin, and that's how they receive the verdict. Chsiv, as the pasuk says, by Moshe, by Yeshev Moshe lishpet esa'am, Moshe sat to judge the people. So Moshe is sitting, and vayamidam, and the people are standing in front of Moshe. So when Moshe is judging, there is no deliberations, as Mefarshim explained. There's no deliberations. Moshe Rabbeinu gives the verdict right away, because he knows right away the psak din. And it says that Moshe Rabbeinu was sitting, and the people are standing in front of him. Now, another source for this, Lishna Achrina, another version, the source for this, Machloikis, same point, but another source. Machloikis b'shas maso matan. The argument whether the Bali Dinim have to stand is during the deliberations. Aval b'shas Gemar Din, at the time of the Gemar Din, Divrei HaKoil, everybody would agree, Dayanim b'yeshiva, a Bali Dinim ba'amida, that the Dayanim sit and the Bali Dinim have to stand. Because the Ha'edim ki Gemar Din damu. The Eidim, when they testify, that's like already the verdict, because there's deliberations about the case, and then the Eidim say the testimony, and that's already basically clarifying what the Gemara Din is. And the Eidim have to stand. By the Eidim it says that they must stand. So therefore, similar regarding the Bali Dinim, when it comes to the verdict, they must stand. Okay, so the Gemara brings a story in connection to this. The Bisu, the Rav Huna, the wife of Rav Huna. So now after Rav Huna passed away, so now she had a din Torah. Havele dina kamei de Rav Nachman. She had a din Torah in front of Rav Nachman. So Omar, Rav Nachman said about this, Heichi Navid, what should I do when she comes to the din Torah? If I'll stand up in front of her, which is what the halacha is, he's supposed to give her proper honor. And the reason is because she's the wife of Rav Huna, which was a great Ameira. And Eishes Chaver, as Gemara here will bring in a second, Eishes Chaver Kechavadami, the wife of a Talmud Chacham is like a Talmud Chacham itself, that you should get up and give her honor. So therefore, Rav Nachman says, if I'm going to get up for her, as it should be, but then, Mistatmen Tanase de Balidina, but then the other Baldina the Torah will lose his mind. He'll think, oh, look what's going on. He's getting up for her and not for me. On the other hand, will I not get up for her? But the wife of a Talmud Chacham is like a Talmud Chacham. So what am I going to do? So as Mefarshim add here, this is a problem specifically in this kind of a case with a wife of a Talmud Chacham. Because if it's a Talmud Chacham himself and the Bezdin gets up for him, so the other Baldin understands the Bezdin is not getting up for him because they have something that they're trying to give him as a special find favor for him in this Din Torah. It's a halacha, they have to get up for him. He's a Talmud Chacham. But over here, by Eshes Chaver, the fact that you have to get up for the wife of a Talmud Chacham, this is not something that everybody knows. So this could cause the other person, the other Baldin, to lose his tightness in the Din Torah. So what did he do? Again?
He gets up for both. He gets up.
Again?
He gets up for both.
Who gets up for both?
The Dayan gets up for both people sitting there.
No, they don't get it. No, the Dayan sits. The Dayan doesn't get up for them.
They both standing up. The wife, the woman.
No, but here the question is regarding the Rav Nachman himself, the judge, Rav Nachman, that he wants to get up for one of the litigants, which is the wife of Rav Huna.
Right, but they're both standing. The wife and the other guy
Correct.
is standing
Correct.
up. So
Correct.
They all stand. They're standing for both of them, like he said.
No, but the Dayan doesn't stand. The Dayan sits. By a Din Torah, the Dayan sits.
Yeah, we're saying one stand up for the.
Once he stand up, he stand up for both of them at the same time because they're both of them standing up.
They're both there. They're both.
Yeah.
But when apparently she comes into the room first, they don't. It's clear that he's standing up for one and not for the other, unless he has them walk into the room at the exact same second. I guess it wasn't possible to. So Amalei L'Shamei. So he said to his attendant in the court, that do as follows. Say va'africh alai bar avze. Go and have this goose fly out over here and by me, and v'shadi lavoy, and throw it in my direction, and veikel. And I'll get up because this goose is coming in my direction. And then it'll seem like I got up because I'm disturbed by this goose, but really I'm getting up for her walking in, so it won't affect the tightness of the other baldin. Okay, but now the Gemara asks regarding such a kind of a case for ha'amamar. But we said before, machlokes b'shas maso matin. The whole argument about whether the balidinim stand or sit, it's at the time of the deliberations. Av b'shas gmar din, when it comes to the verdict, divrei hakol, everybody agrees. Dayanim b'yeshiva, that the dayanim then must sit when they give out the verdict. They must be sitting. Or balidinim ba'amida, and the balidinim must be standing. So if so, similar kind of a case that we're talking about over here. If you have the balidinim that are walking into the bezdin for the time of the verdict, and at the verdict you don't want to sit in front of a big Talmud Chacham that's standing in front of you. So not only in this kind of a case, but any case where you have a dintayra where one of them is a Talmud Chacham and you don't want to sit in his presence, but the halacha is that you have to sit at the time when you're giving the verdict. So how does the dayan, the judge, sit in front of this Talmud Chacham? So what do? Says the Gemara, the Yosef command the Shari Mesane. He doesn't fully sit. He basically sort of sits. He bends over like when a person ties his shoes. And then that's how he says the psak din. V'amar, and then he gives the verdict, Ish pleni ata zakav, Ish pleni ata chayiv. You are meritorious and you're chayiv. So you can't sit because it's a Talmud Chacham standing in front of you, but on the other hand, you have to sit. So that's if you do something in between. Okay, so this is also the answer to the question you asked before. You see over here that it's not enough just to stand when they walk into the room. Later also, you have to stand the whole time, sort of. Okay. So the Gemara, Rabbi Baravone said, when you have a Talmud Chacham and an ignoramus, that have a dintayra together. So in such a case, we have the Talmud Chacham sit down. We tell him, we give him the right honor that he should sit. But because this is a dintayra, we have to tell the Amaretz that if he wants, he could also sit. But if he stands, less lamba. We're not going to make him sit. If he decides to stand, we're not going to make him sit. For the Talmud Chacham, we have to give him the honor. We have to have him sit. But for the Amaretz, we give him the choice to sit. So the Gemara brings a story. Rav Bar Shravya, Rav, the son of Shravya, Rav Papa. He had a dintayra in front of Rav Papa. Oisvei. He had him, so they had him sit. And Vaisav Nami the Baldina, and he gave the choice for the Baldin also to sit down, and the other Baldin, which was an Amaretz, also sat down. So they're both sitting at this dintayra. Also Shlicha the Beidina, so the attendant of the Bezdin came and batish Beit. Kicked this Baldin, this ignoramus. What are you sitting for? You see this big Talmud Chacham sitting over here. What are you sitting in his presence? And he had him stand up. And the Rav Papa did not say to the Amaretz, no, you could sit down. So the question is, but how did Rav Papa allow this to happen? But what is cause that the tightness of this Baldin will close up because he sees that the other Baldin, which is Talmud Chacham, is standing? So the Gemara says, Amar Rav Papa, Meimar Omar Iyu, because Rav Papa said, Meimar Omar Iyu, this Baldin that was forced by the attendant to stand up, so he will say to himself, Ha Isvan, I was told that I could sit down. It's this attendant in the court that's not that's displeased with me. But Rav Papa allowed me to sit down. So I see that Rav Papa is treating us equally. So the fact that the attendant of the court is upset with me and he doesn't want me to sit, that won't affect his ability to say his tainus properly. Rabbi Baravona said, when you have a Talmud Chacham and an Amaretz, Islu Adina Bahadi Adadi, that have it entitled together, Loi Liktim Tzurbim Rabbanim Velesiv, the Talmud Chacham should not come first to the Tentayra and sit down there with the judges, because Mishum Demechzi Command Sadle Ladine. It would seem like he's coming there earlier in order to present his tainus to the Bezdin before the Tentayra starts to say his side of the story. So therefore he's not allowed to come and sit with them before. But that's only if this Talmud Chacham that's coming to the Bezdin does not have a time where he anyways usually comes to learn with them Torah. But if he has a time where he learns with them, so then less lomba. then it doesn't matter if he comes earlier to just learn with them. Because Meimer Omar, then the other Baldin that sees that he came early says, he just he came to learn. The Chavrusa that he has, he usually comes to learn with them. So it's not going to cause him to think that he's already presenting his tainus before him. Rabbi Baravona said another thing, the Yoda Besadusa, a Talmud Chacham that knows testimony. But Vizila Bey Milsa Lemeza Lebey Dina de Zutamine. But it's degrading for him to go to testify in a court that's beneath his dignity. So, la Sudikameh, the Zutamine la Sudikameh. It's too beneath his dignity to go and testify there. Loy Lezel. He does not have to go and testify. Even though the whole thing we're speaking about over here is that there's a mitzvah to say Eidos, and if one swears that he doesn't know Eidos, it's an Aveda. But in such a case, though, where it's beneath his dignity, because it's the kavod of a Talmud Chacham, he doesn't have to take away from his kavod of Teira, of Talmud Chacham, to go and say Eidos. So the Gemara says, we learned a similar halacha regarding a Shavuos Aveda. Matzah sakai kupa, a person, a Talmud Chacham, that finds a sack or a box of something. And even if it would be his own, it's not customary for him to go and schlep this in the street because he's a Talmud Chacham. He doesn't have the obligation to return this. And it's learned, as Rashi brings from the pasuk where it says, V'his alamto pam shatam misalim, that sometimes a person may turn away from an Aveda when he's a Talmud Chacham and it's not for his dignity. So the same thing over here as well. Regarding the Eidos, we apply the same concept. But the Gemara says, Hanimili b'mamayna. This is all regarding a din Torah, which is a money matter. Avo be'isura. But if there's a din Torah where there's an issue of Isser, and the example Rashi brings is a woman that's coming in front of a Bezdin and she wants to get remarried, and she's proving that her husband already died, so she can get remarried. And this Talmud Chacham knows for a fact that her husband is still alive. So in such a case, the Talmud Chacham can't say, I'm not going to testify about this because it's beneath my dignity. He has to come and save this woman from the Isser of getting married when she's an Eishes Ish. Why? Because by Isser I say, Ein Chachme ve'ein Tfune ve'ein Eitzel neged Hashem. There's no wisdom, there's no plan, there's nothing you can do against Hashem in such a case to prevent this woman from doing an Isser. Kol makim sheyesh chil Hashem, anywhere that there could be a chil Hashem, that Hashem's name will be disgraced, Ein Chalken Kavod L'Rav. We don't look at the kavod of the Talmud Chacham. So the Gemara brings a story of Rav Yemer, Haviyadeh le Saduse le Marzutra. Rav Yemer, so he had a testimony to say for Marzutra. So he came to the Din Torah by a Meimer. What happened? A Meimer had all of them sit, meaning not only the Bali Dinim, he had them sit, but he had the Eidim sit as well. So Rav Ashi says to Meimer, why are you having the Eidim sitting? But Ula said, right in the beginning of this Amud, the argument about whether they have to stand or sit is all regarding the litigants. Regarding the Eidim, everybody agrees that the Eidim must stand. So why did Meimer have Rav Yemer sit? He's one of the Eidim. So Meimer answered, Hi Esa, and V'hai Esa. There's an Esa, it says in the pasuk, V'omdu shnei anoshim, that the two Eidim must stand. But then there's also another Esa, to give the proper kavod for a Talmud Chacham. As Rashi brings when it says in the pasuk, Es Hashem lekecha tira, that S comes to add and say that you have to give a Talmud Chacham the kavod. So I have one Esa and another Esa. Which Esa do I fulfill? Esa, the kavod Torah, adif. The Esa, which is to give kavod to the Talmud Chacham, which is a kavod of the Torah, that's pushes off the other Esa, va'omdu, that the Eidim have to stand. And therefore he had Rav Yemer, which was a Talmud Chacham, sit at this Din Torah, even though he was saying Eidos.